Hello, hello, and welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It, the podcast where we say the quiet parts out loud, real unfiltered talk that's straight to the point and no fake positivity. I'm your host, Danielle Young, and today I'm joined by Sarah Shoulak. Sarah is a remote HR lady, a speaker, artist, and mental health advocate with a new memoir coming out in April all about death and grief. Now, in today's episode, we are talking about processing and discussing difficult life experiences, including grief, trauma, and brushes with death, and how to find lightness, healing, and community through open conversation and sharing personal stories. Sarah, welcome to Fine, I'll Talk About It.
Thank you so much, Danielle. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about you, your past, and we'll go from there.
I know I got to roll up my sleeves, right? I got to get ready for it. Well, you did a great job with the intro. I think the intro kind of paints me as that perfect Jill of all trades. And not that I'm perfect, but the perfect storm, so to speak. And I feel like I've been the type of person who started out my life being very introspective and very self aware. And then through that, continued to have almost like an improv style approach to life that everything was yes, and I'm just going to have all these experiences which can feel in one part on the positive side very enriching and exciting that, oh, you're doing all these cool things and oh, I wish I could do these things that you're doing in your life. But in some ways, it takes you on paths that are very destructive when you don't have those boundaries and those strong values set up and defined to say that these are my values and this is what I will do and I won't do, whether it's just standards or boundaries or expectations of yourself. So I feel like I've lived a rich life in just 35 years. And so I feel like that's what drove me to write my book that's coming out this week. So young, I'm not some person on their porch in their 90s and recounting all of the life experiences and success I've had. I felt like it was really imperative to write my book sooner so that I could remind people. Everybody's heard that phrase now that you're never too old to XYZ. You're never too old to start that podcast or that workout or, Oprah was this age when she whatever. And I'm here to kind of have that opposite idea that you're never too young to make a big change in your life. Because for example, I was only 27 when I quit drinking. And I write about that in the book and what that meant for me for sobriety and that path. And so I feel like sometimes people need the reminders that you don't have to have hit a certain threshold or rock bottom to make a big change.
Yeah, I love that because a lot of people just think that age is a limit. And it's like, well, no. And the question I like to ask people is if you never knew how old you were, what would you be doing?
That's powerful. I think of my mom who's probably like permanently mentally 16 and she's great. And she just pings her and she probably lives like that. She probably lives by that adage. Like she just never knows how old she is.
Yeah. I mean, I hear it all the time, especially from older people. They're like, well, I'm too old to go back to school. And it's like, I just read about this lady a few years ago that got her PhD when she was like in her 70s. It's never
Yeah.
too late.
It's never too late, but then also my whole take is if you're young, sometimes I feel like especially with substance abuse and what I was doing to be destructive, because it was in line socially, everybody drinks in college, everybody has a little crazy in their 20s, everybody just why does everybody just? Why are we okay with everybody justing? Like why do we have to keep doing this? And I feel like you can also pump the brakes on what everybody thinks is okay when you feel like it's not okay.
Very true. 20s are a hard time for people. I don't know. My 20s I had a kid and was living on my own. So, you know, I don't know if I've had the traditional experience, but um yeah, 20s are sort of that time where you're out of school and you've become completely independent and autonomous and then, you're like, yeah, I'm going to rebel and I'm going to do all these things and it's like people just kind of go wild and then they don't know when to rein it in. It's like some people that I know just kept going down that path. And it's like, well, how do you know too much is too much? When do you know too
Right.
much is too
Well, and
much?
it's like it's almost I mean, I was gonna say you get drunk on power, and I'm not trying to make all these like it's all about alcohol references, but when you start to unlock that free will and it goes beyond like, oh, I can have candy for breakfast or I can have,
Yeah.
once you get past all those things, I feel like the trap that I got stuck in is that I was still Capricorn rising over here. I'm still a really high achiever, right? So I'm still going to school. I'm not dropping out of college. I got my master's degree. I achieved my undergraduate. I got a master's degree. I bought a house at 25 without a cosigner. Like I had all of these milestones that felt like I am a hallmark of success. I am a success story. While at the same time, I'm hiding binge drinking and poor, social behaviors and really kind of just giving in to that people pleasing. And if I just act cool and if I'm cool with everybody doing whatever they're doing, then they're going to think I'm cool. And then being cool and all that acceptance somehow equals love. And it took me a long time to get out of that mindset and go, oh, these relationships aren't even good relationships. And why do I care so much about maintaining these relationships when these people would never even show up for me if I needed something? But here I am making my life bending over backwards doing the mental gymnastics to make this seem okay when I didn't really want to be in a lot of those environments if I was given options. And I didn't feel like I was given options because my brain was like, be cool, fit in, don't rock the boat, don't be cringe, don't be weird, don't call it out, don't be the buzzkill. I'm like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
gonna be the buzzkill.
Yeah, I mean, what was your influence for that though? Was it friends? Was it family? Was it, your work people? Like who
D, all of the above. I feel
got
like
it?
there was such a and I write about this a lot for people who wanna go real deep into it, but I think that there was just such a culture in the Midwest of it being okay to have underage drinking or, you tried a little bit of this at a party, and there was just so much of it not feeling that bad because it was so socially acceptable. And I say that, but I'm sure that there's people who come from the Midwest who have 0 tolerance, 0 access or dipping their toe into these areas. So I don't say that it's everybody. I just say that in these pockets of where I was and with family from Wisconsin and growing up in Minnesota, that it didn't feel like I was doing things that were so horrendous. It just felt like I was being a little sneaky or I was being little bit of a rebel, but then those little things kept building on each other, right? Where at first it's just having a little bit of alcohol and then maybe it's, oh, I shoplifted a little thing. And it was never anything that was like I ended up needing to go to detox because I had alcohol poisoning or I got arrested. It was never to these levels that I would be like, well, that's what a bad person would do. And if that happens to me, then I'm a bad person. So I just kept kind of flirting with that line of how much of bad is really bad and not just a little naughty. Because there's that flirtation, right? Where it's like, oh, well, I should be eating good, but I'm gonna have this chocolate bar. There's that little bit of like it feels naughty and kind of cute and like, oh, it's okay. It's fun to live on this edge. And then you get into your 20s and you're like, what is this giving back to me? Like, and by the time I had made those changes, like I said, I was 27 when I quit drinking. I was in late 20s, right? That's late 20s. It's like I'm on the doorstep of 30 when I'm making those decisions. And I'm like, where is my life going? Where am I pouring my energy into and what is giving energy back to me? And I realized at that point that I just had given so much of myself away. Often when I think about that time in 2017, I kind of refer to myself as a husk of a person, that I was just a shell. I was just existing as the outer. I had no sense of self or inner core or strength or anything. I was just shriveling away. And I knew that something had to be done. So that was my big moment of change.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna ask, do you remember like a specific moment where you were like, this is it. Like I'm done.
You would think that it would be a big, like, slap in the face moment of this thing happens, especially in my book when I talk about all those brushes with death, about, that would be some aha moment where I, like, fell asleep at the wheel and then I woke up and I'm like, "I've gotta change my life." And surprisingly, it was never any of those. I feel like those I just kept bouncing back and was like, "Well, that was weird," and lived my life. But when I really decided to stand up for myself and do something for myself, which ended up being sobriety, which I don't know that it was my goal from the onset to quit drinking and say, I'm never going to drink again forever. I kind of just wanted to do a social experiment. And I wanted to say, the way I refer to it is that alcohol was my gateway drug and that there were things that I would do and situations I would get myself in. Not that everything that happened to me was my fault. My therapist is working with me on the accountability part of these things. But I do have to acknowledge that because I was drinking and because I let my drinking get to a certain spot and because I was like, yeah, sure, let's follow the crowd and, kind of do what everybody's doing, I ended up in situations that 15 steps ago, I would have never agreed to those types of things. And so I looked at a number of these experiences coming up and it always following that same pattern. I was drinking, maybe it was a whole day of day drinking, maybe it was Sunday fun day, maybe it was whatever, but it always was like extended drinking, bad decisions. Extended drinking, bad decisions. And I'm like, okay, going out on a limb here, what if I just take the drinking away? Let's just see what my it was a social experiment. Like if we just take this away, how much trouble am I getting into? How many bad decisions am I actually making if that's not involved? And wouldn't you know it, no more bad decisions. Not like no more bad decisions, but it was very clear that I was only getting into those situations because of the alcohol. And the relationship that I was in, I was not supported. I just said it on another podcast, and it's just so blatant in my face that I said to my partner that I was dating at the time, I said, I think I'm going to quit drinking. And instead of probing or being shocked or like, oh, why or what, or, you're just taking a month off, or his response was, well, that sucks because I really like drinking. And it was so selfish, So it's like very clear why that person's an ex in my life, but just showing that not everyone close to you is going to immediately be concerned or interested or supportive of what you're going to do.
Yeah. And was that a thought when you decided to quit? Was who's going to leave my life? Who's going to walk out of my life if I decide, hey, I'm not going to live my life like this anymore.
I think it felt like what do you call it? Like a unintended consequence, but maybe a happy consequence out of it,
Yeah.
where it's not like I was trying to push him out of my life. It was not a healthy environment. And I try not to have every time I reference that relationship that I'm just like shitting on him, that I'm just saying like he was the worst, he was toxic. I think that we brought the worst out in each other and that I was not the person that I wanted to be and I was not doing the things that I should have or would have been doing once again, just like the alcohol influence. If I wasn't in that relationship, I wouldn't have been doing a lot of those things too. And I feel like the way that I put it is like our demons bonded, like the trauma bonding. And it was like the darkest parts of both of us were what brought us together, for better or worse. Where it was like we kind of saw the brokenness in each other and was like, well, I guess this is what I deserve because you're broken, I'm broken. We're doing this. And it went on way too long. It went on way that relationship because there were complicated factors. He had children, and I was really trying to not have it be a fleeting relationship. Like if I was going to be serious enough to be in a relationship with someone with kids, I was going to take it seriously and really try and make it work, probably more than I made other relationships work. Or if I saw other relationships headed on a similar trajectory, I would have mercy killed it a little bit sooner than this, knowing that there were kids involved. But it's not like it got any better in time. If anything, everything just kept getting worse in time. And maybe that's why I was so desperate to make such a big life change that I was like, well, if my logic says you're committed to him and the family, so you can't just get him out of your life, maybe you take away some of those big things that you guys do together. And like you're saying, who will stay and what will change and what will change for the better. And it's been very obvious what needed to flow after that.
Yeah. And that's so common too, getting into a relationship. It's because we will get into relationships where we are, So if we're on
Yeah.
that destructive path, we're going to meet up with someone who's also on that destructive path. I mean, that's kind of the way it
It's misery
works.
loves
And
company. That's
right.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, we can just fix each other.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
we think we can fix each other.
Yeah. No, you can't.
Mm,
It ain't gonna happen. But it's so common, people just they get into these situations and they think, "It's okay. We're both the same. We're both alike and we get along and it's not physically abusive, but it's
well, if you ask my walls I'm just kidding.
four walls."
And what's crazy about it is, like, the Facebook memories and Snapchat memories and things like that, and I know that technology is just meant to keep you on the technology, so they don't really care about nostalgia or anything. But they are so triggering sometimes where you think that you have gone meticulously through your life and deleted every trace of this person, and then all of a sudden you get walloped, and maybe it's not even a Facebook memory where they're in the photo, but I mean, there's a few photos that I've seen recently where I'm in a certain bathroom and you can tell, I can tell because I know the trajectory of this, I can tell when that wall was intact when I filmed something and the wall was intact. I can tell when there was a picture frame put over that hole in the wall that he put there, and then I can see when I had the strength to repair the hole and I put a mural over it, but the mural had to be so big because it was covering this hole in the wall. And so even if I have deleted all of the photos of him, of the family, of, him being in my life and like seeing those memories, there's still all those kind of little tendrils and the strings that are still attached to it. It's like I still know the context of what happened, and the transformation of that bathroom was not just, oh, look at she painted a cute little mermaid. It's like she was hiding this, and I think that's powerful. And one of the things that gravitated me, that what drew me into your podcast, was what you say in that tagline of saying the inside parts out loud and say not letting the quiet parts stay quiet, because there are times that we need to be reminded, no matter how strong we are, that healing is not linear. And that you might think, here I am. I'm in a beautiful relationship. We just got engaged. We've been together 6 years, a beautiful, healthy, good relationship. And we just moved into this beautiful new house. That's why there's nothing on my wall behind me. And we needed to take a TV mount that the previous owners had on the wall upstairs. And we were taking this TV mount off. And it was really, really on there. And when we ended up finally getting it taken off, there's a huge gaping hole in the wall. And I did not realize 7 years later how much seeing a hole in a wall was going to impact me and affect me emotionally. And again, this is like 7 years removed from being in that situation where that happened, but seeing that hole, I couldn't do it. I had to put painter's tape over the hole, and I had to not be able to look at it, because even though I know I'm safe, even though I know mentally we can mind over matter all day over anxiety, but it still showed that there were wounds there, that there was, whether it was that I was, ashamed or frustrated or sad or hurt, those were still things that I wanted to give space to, but I didn't need to stare down this hole in the wall as the reminder of it. So I still wanted to cover it up. But I don't look at that and say, well, I'm a failure because I thought I was more healed by now or whatever. It's just recognize it, hold the feeling, and give yourself space for it. And if that means what's going to make you feel better is covering it up and getting it patched up and do it, my fiance did a great job. He patched it up. So I'm like, my hero, he he saved me from the stupid hole in the wall. But there are going to be times like that where you think you're so far removed from a situation and something still kind of triggers you. And rather than feeling like a failure, just don't bottle more emotions up. That's another big mission from my book, is we need to feel the emotions. Maybe not
Yes.
sitting in them constantly, but give them the time that they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. And people don't understand that that's what needs to happen. I say probably in every podcast episode, I mean, if you've listened up until this one, you're probably going to hear me 9 times out of 10 say healing is not linear. There's no timeline for it. Everybody's on their own journey, and we get that stuck into our heads. I mean, I'm 26 years out from my abuse and I still get triggered. I mean, it's those little reminders. Like, I cannot smell beer. My ex was an alcoholic and beer was his drink of choice, and not even a good beer. It was like that nasty, like, what was the, like, Bud Ice or something, whatever that.
Keystone,
No, it wasn't Keystone. It was Bud, but it was like Budweiser or Natural Ice or something like that. I don't know. It was
Natty Ice.
something like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a drinker, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like, I wasn't a beer person. I feel like now I drink more NA beers than I ever drank alcoholic beers, which I find so funny.
Oh, yeah. See, I don't even like non-alcoholic beer. Like, what
Yeah,
was the
well, it would
one?
still smell like it, so there you wouldn't, yeah.
Yeah. And now when I smell that kind of like crappy beer, I'm like, oh God, I just get this whole feeling. So,
Yeah.
and then, it's just reminding yourself, okay, it's okay. This is just a reminder that I still have work to do. Like I said, 26 years out, I still have work to do, and it's a daily thing. And the more that people understand that, I feel like the easier things are going to be on that journey, you know?
Well, because it makes you more connected to the influence, right? Because it makes you realize, I'm not just having a mood swing, or I'm not just, maybe it is just particularly as women, we tend to need to analyze, is it my time of the month? Is it just this? Is it just hormones? Is it whatever? And to be able to be self aware and conscious enough to say, this is a reminder, or this is a trigger, or this is, something that is giving me direction in my healing journey and in my healing path. And like you said, maybe it means I have a little more work to do, or maybe it means I what do I need right now? I just need to cover it up. Do I need a good cry? Do I need to cover up the hole? Do I need to do whatever? But if you bottle it up, what that looks like is not acknowledging where it's really coming from, not acknowledging the truth behind it. And my actions that I could have taken in a more unhealed state would have just been like, you know, yelling at my fiancé that he needs to patch the hole up and he has no context and he's like, "Why are you so like, I don't get it." Like, I'll get to it, and he's just, like, not understanding the urgency because I'm not letting myself to sit with say, "This is a me thing. You know what I need? I just need to cover it up with painter's tape, and I don't care if it takes him 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever to patch the hole because all I needed to do was not be looking at it and not have that constant reminder." So, it says you might not be able to just go fix it. Maybe you just put a patch on it, but you're still being honest about its origin and what you need to do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, don't bypass it. That's just, do what you need to do is what I always say. Just don't bypass it because then it stays, it gets stuck, and then things just pile on it, and then it becomes one big lump and then you're picking things off. It's not fun when you just let things sit and ruminate.
Well, and that's what's gonna kill us, not to be, like, straight to, like, morbid, but, my book is about death, so I think I can get
Yeah,
there,
no,
but,
it,
we are
it
the
will.
ones when we live with stress, it builds up in our systems, and it builds up in our immune system, it builds up in our brain, it builds up in our heart and our gut. You're gonna get an ulcer, and you know what? They're not getting an ulcer. They're not losing sleep over it. They're not, all bugged out, but you are, and you're carrying that with you. And I love finding really creative visuals to process my and I don't mean like all artistically, like it's not art therapy, like I'm painting it out, but they're just things I think of in my brain to kind of help me get to that next phase. And one of the ways that I was picturing a challenging relationship with one of my family members was like a helium balloon. And the helium balloon had a really long ribbon that I was holding it from. And the helium balloon is really big and weightless, right? So it's there. I'm still carrying it with me, but it's not on my shoulders. It's not weight pulling me down or this drain and this exhaustion. It's just that the helium balloon, and I can still walk with it. And maybe on certain days, I envision that ribbon being even longer and I need it to be really far away, but I'm still carrying it with me because I still acknowledge that that person is in my life and I might have boundaries and they're still going to be in my life and they might annoy me or whatever. And I'm not going to be able to like cut the ribbon and actually like disown or go no contact or whatever. But I don't have to feel this imposing presence of them like on my shoulders and on my back and on my heart and anything. I can think of it as this helium balloon. So sometimes, and I write in my book, sometimes the way, because the book title is Dead Serious How Death Made Me Laugh at Life. And it's not necessarily a funny book, haha, funny. It's kind of that like dark humor of some of it is just so ridiculous that you're like, are you kidding me? And you almost kind of have to chuckle and laugh because it's so crazy. Like both of my grandpas had heart attacks on the exact same day. One of them made it, one of them didn't. Like, that's crazy, right? That's, like, one of the 15 stories that are in there, and some of them are just so bizarre. Like, what other forum would I have to share a story like that? It's just so kind of ridiculous, and
Yeah.
so some of them, it's not that you're laughing at, especially if it's a death, you're not looking at that death and going, "Ha ha, glad you're dead." It's, like,
Yeah.
not like that.
Well, some
It's more
might
of,
be,
like
but
some might be, and sometimes you might say, "Well, because this is so heavy." And because every time I think about this person being gone, I just burst out in crying. Rather than thinking of them right now, I'm going to think about the things that they loved. Or I'm going to watch something that's funny to take my mind off of it, which isn't insensitive because it's balancing the love that you have for them. Because that's what grief is. Grief is love. And you wouldn't have that reaction of grief if you didn't love them. So I feel like it's a balance because we're being aware of our emotions. And when you're aware and conscious, of where they're coming from, like you're saying, then you know what you need to do, and you can just do what you need to do.
yeah. No, I feel that. I lost my grandparents within 6 months of each other just this past year. My grandma died in May and my grandpa died in the October before, so October of 24 and then May of 25. And they donated the bodies to science. So, I have my grandma's ashes and I'm waiting on my grandpa's. But I was so distraught by their deaths, especially my grandma, because we knew my grandpa was going to die. He had cancer. I was there. He was in hospice. But my grandma I just talked to her the day before. Bam, she's gone the next day. And I mean, her and I were very close. And I was just so distraught. And then I got her ashes and I'm like, I was just hugging the box. And then I thought, you know what? I have to think of ways to not cry every time I look at this box. So this is going to sound kind of morbid, but this past Halloween, we just made her part of the decorations. I'm like, she always loved to decorate. She always loved like stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. Now we're just gonna, she's
Did you
just
get a nice big clear vase? Like, how
gonna
did
be
you?
we got those little, the spider web things and put those because she's on like our old entertainment center under a window. We put her under the window that faces our pool and she gets nice and sunlight and there's a little palm tree next to her. So, she's in a really pretty spot. But I'm like, okay, no, I have this opportunity. This is funny. She would think it's funny. So we just put the little cobweb things over her and she just became part of the
Incorporate
decorations.
it, yeah. No, it's and you
Yeah.
know what? Because you mentioned that, I'll share one little this is a teaser to your listeners, because the book is coming out this Friday, April 17th, and I haven't
17th.
really promoted a lot of, like usually I'm talking about my stories, but this is probably one of the ones that maybe even contributed to the naming of my book. So my grandfather passed away, the one of the ones who had the heart attacks. At the same time, one of them made it, the other one didn't. So the one that made it had a pretty long and relatively healthy life. The details surrounding his death were really kind of sudden, but also not, where he was in the hospital because he had broken his leg, so it was really unrelated. But then when he was in the hospital, he contracted pneumonia, and that's, for older people, that's really tough for them to come back from. And so then all of a sudden, we thought from the leg thing he was going to be okay, and then really suddenly he was gone. I think I was about 17 or 18. Yeah, must have been 18. And my dad had gone he was there actually saying goodbye, and so my dad was in, what do you call it? Theologian school? Theology school? He was studying theology in school. He was a religious guy, right? And so he had all these books, and so he'd be at my grandpa's bedside, and he'd be reading from the book, and my grandpa was Catholic, but my dad was Episcopalian. He had converted our family. And so his book that he had for reading all these things was Episcopal because that was the school he was in and everything like that. And so he had put his book on the shelf and he had gone out probably to get some fresh air or do something. And he had probably forgotten about this book until the funeral when he sees my grandpa laying in the casket and they put the book in his hands because it got all stocked up, it got all packaged up with him when he passed away, all of his belongings in that hospital room they thought were his belongings, not realizing my dad had left his little Episcopal prayer book in this room with him, and they put it in his hands and, like, staged him with it, like, at the funeral. And so in the book I write that, my dad, like, calls he's all of a sudden we're at the funeral. I didn't watch this, but, this is my dad's memory of it, and my dad is looking over his father who's in the casket, and he, like, starts laughing and, like, snickering about this, and he pulls my little brother over, and he's like, hey, Joe, come over." And, like, Joe is mortified, like, "Literally, why are you laughing? It is your father's funeral. What on earth is funny here?" And then he goes, "My book is in his hands. He's Catholic. It's not even his book." Like, he just thought it was, like, the funniest thing. And so then he looks to my little brother and he goes, "Why don't you get it for me?" And Joe is like, "Absolutely not. Like, are you kidding? Like, I'm not gonna take." So my dad does, and he just yanks it, zoinks this book literally from my grandfather's cold, dead hands, and then he's just walking around the rest of the greeting everybody, "Oh, thanks for being here." And then I think the way he summed it up to my little brother is, "Anything can be funny if you look hard enough." And I think that it was just like you're saying, you could look at it and say, "Well, that's morbid, that's horrible, you're being sacrilegious, or you're desecrating his body," or whatever. But at the end of the day, you could kinda chuckle at it because in that moment, he needed that levity. He was the oldest son, he just lost his dad. They did the 21 gun salute because he was in the military, it was really powerful, he had the flag folded up, everything felt heavy. Everything felt so I'm never gonna see him again. I'm never gonna be able to show him something. He's never gonna be proud of me. You can think of all these things that weigh on you when you hear those news. And then when you find one little moment of ray of light that you could be like, well, she would really enjoy Halloween. And I think she'd get a kick out of this. And when you can look at it in that way, that's not being sacrilegious or disrespectful to the whole fact that they died. If anything, think, if we could take anything from the animated movie Coco, is that like keeping people's memory alive is one of the most beautiful things that you can do because when you forget them, they die twice. So
Yeah.
I love things that keep people's memories around.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was my way of still incorporating her in my life.
Yeah.
you
She's
know?
still there with you.
She's still here. Yeah. Yeah. And when I get my grandpa's ashes, we're gonna make them bookends. My grandfather and I love books, and so he's gonna be I'm like, "Why not?"
Yeah. No, that's really
They're not
sweet.
gonna be matching urns or anything. I'm not going that far, but, it's just finding little ways to be lighter, and it's not even with grief, it's just in life in general. Like, if you can find a way to be lighter, then I feel like things are so much easier when things do get darker.
100%. And one of the things that I mention in the book that I kind of joke is going to save our lives is whimsy. And whimsy is not the same as creativity because a lot of times people talk about creativity and then there are all these blocks of, well, I'm not an artist or I'm not creative. I couldn't, draw a stick figure. But creativity is really limiting. You put it in the box, right? But whimsy is from your spirit. Whimsy is from your essence. Whimsy is looking at something and be like, what if we make it a game? The floor is lava, or don't step on a crack, you break your mother's back. That's whimsical. That's looking at something and saying, I'm going to look at it like we're on a D&D quest and this is a side quest. And it's not, I'm not running errands, I'm on a side quest. It's looking at something in a healthier, more light way. And there are definitely intentional ways to do this. And one of the easiest ways that I recommend as like an entry into whimsy is with your appearance, right? And that could be really extreme. It could be having your hair be a fun color. It could be dressing in really extravagant ways. But if you don't want a lot of attention, you can do it in more subtle ways too. Like a lot of times it could just be really fun earrings. Like I have earrings that are in the shape of those sticky hands that you used to like throw and stick on things.
Yes.
So I have earrings that are in that shape and
I
I
love
love
that.
them. I have earrings that look like little lizards that are like clipping up and biting my ear. So they don't have to be big, like, oh, I'm wearing a silly hat today because I feel really whatever. But there are times where I'm going into experiences that I'm maybe I know it's going to be a hard day. Or maybe, I mean, I work in HR, right? So there are days that I know I'm going to have challenging conversations, or days that I know I'm going to be really drained. And maybe I do wear bracelets from my mom because it makes me feel like she's there with me, or I wear my silly earrings because I know I'm going to have a hard conversation. And it doesn't mean that I'm trying to be a ridiculous person, but just like you said, I'm trying to have like in how my life feels because we can't control what life gives us, but we can control what we give ourselves. So when I know that life is already giving me so much, it just kind of helps even it out when I give myself some lighter things and you can look forward to, or you can gamify, or, I always joke with my fiance that I love interactive food. Like any food that involves like steps to a process, like s'mores or fajitas or anything that I have to
Gotcha.
like build or make or
Yeah.
dunk, like birria tacos, like I am here for anything that has steps and interactivity. Like I just, not just a fork and a knife, like, if I get to play with my hands, 100 times better, and
Yeah.
it's a little thing that makes every meal fun.
Yeah. No, life can be so hard and so serious and so random sometimes that it's like there's a safety in knowing that you have that, whether it's fun food, whether it's, the earrings or the bracelet
Or
or,
socks. Socks are so easy. I have Care Bear socks, and nobody has to know. I know I'm wearing Care Bear socks.
yeah. My son does crazy socks. They don't match. It drives me crazy because I'm like
Yeah.
that brain, but he loves to wear like mismatched crazy socks. And I'm like, dude, you rock on. That's cool.
Yeah, go off, younging.
Yeah. Doesn't, I mean, the fact that they don't match bothers me, but
Yeah.
the rest of it doesn't bother me. But just knowing that we have those little like touch points, that could mean the difference between having a nervous breakdown and not having a nervous breakdown is just that
Right?
little moment of, damn, I needed that.
And
Like,
sometimes it doesn't even have to be something that's physically attached to you. Sometimes, like I said, it could be the interactive food, or a lot of times, like, if I do feel like I'm on that verge of like my brain is too heavy and I'm doing too much, or if I need to remember something and I feel like my brain is too full, I think I'll like sing it and I'll like put a little melody on it and I'll sing it. Or like if I'm, in the kitchen and I'm like really frazzled and I'm like, first we do the water, then we do the salt. I'm like, you start
okay,
to
I'm glad to
sing
know
it
I'm
and
not
it's
the
like,
only one that does that.
no, I'm totally do that. And I think it's so fun. I feel like it's just like a little bit of like, or, you just have like little, like, it almost feels like a jingle, like a little catchphrase way that you like sing something. And I guess that I have some that are almost like ticks at this point that my fiance has heard. And one time I said that I never do that, and he's like, "You do that like 3 times a day." And I was like, "I never say that." And he's like, "You really don't think you've ever said that?" I'm like, "I don't think I've ever said." So,
Just
sometimes they're just
subconsciously
your
doing it.
body just yeah, it just comes out because you need it.
Yeah. Well, no, and our body knows, our mind knows, like, this is our safe place to go because this is where we go when things like this happen. I know I make up words to stuff all the time. In fact, we were doing this last night. My whole family, so certainly my affliction is I can turn anything into a song, like literally anything. Like you can mention cellophane and I will start singing Mr. Cellophane from Chicago. I mean, that's me. So I will literally just start making up words to whatever, and my husband thought that that was so crazy in the beginning. And 22 years in, now he does it. And I'm
You're
like, see?
recruiting, you got the whole chorus line.
Yes. And my kids do it too. It's so awesome that like I started this little trend and now everybody knows like that is our thing that we do whenever things get really high, tension's high or stress is high and like we're feeling it. And we just turn everything into a song. I mean, literally.
It helps diffuse the tension. It helps
It
break up the
does.
situation, and I feel like that goes back to what we were saying about carrying stress. Tension, stress, I mean, I feel it in my shoulders. If anybody's listening, this is your cue to stop clenching your jaw and then bring your shoulders down because we don't realize how much we get stuck up in that, and then that's when you're so high strung that you snap. That is that metaphor. That is exactly what that's about, is that when you are a little bit more free flowing and flexible in life, that's where that comes from. So somebody, skeptics or naysayers might hear these suggestions and be like, I don't know how socks are going to fix my trauma or how socks are going to fix my this. And I don't think that it's going to fix it because you can't go into any of these circumstances saying my earrings are going to fix my relationship with my family member. You can't look at it like that. What you're saying is, because I'm carrying so much of these burdens, or because I have so many of these things that I can't solve overnight, I'm going to find some little sprinkle in some little things that I just enjoy in this world. And that could be word puzzles, that could be video games, that could be things that take a lot of your focus and concentration because you know what it is? It means you're not doom scrolling. It means that you're not worrying, you're not sitting there in your issue going, what am I gonna do about it? Because there's so much time that you're already gonna have to spend doing that, that when you can give yourself moments, and sure, they can look like traditional self-care. They can be a bubble bath or going for a walk and touching grass and stuff. But sometimes it can be like having a stuffed animal sidekick or making your desk space look really cute and maybe you want it to all be like pink and gold and like have a certain aesthetic. Like that becomes that alternative form of self-care that I see as whimsy and that, whimsy's going to save our life.
Yeah. No, I agree. When the pandemic first started, I would walk because I was like so high anxiety when that whole thing started because we didn't know anything. And I was like, you know what? Just walk around and say the word bubbles because you cannot be angry if you're saying the word bubbles. There's no way. Like,
That's how I feel about dancing. That's the thing. It's like, if you just start to like do a little cha-cha or get your body moving, you really can't have anger.
yeah,
Have you ever tried to like, be angry and dance? Like really try and do that. Like picture yourself as angry and then see if you could actually still dance when you're angry and you can't do it. I
right.
think because then you start laughing at yourself of how ridiculous that probably feels and looks.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just gonna try and trick everybody to be happier people in the world. That's my mission.
There you go. Yeah. Little booty shake while you're
Yeah.
making
Go
popcorn.
twerk it out.
Yeah. Just like, yeah. I mean, yeah, I absolutely hate cooking, but I have to do it every night. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I'll stand at their stove and just like, kind of do a little because number one, it keeps my brain from going, I hate cooking. And number two, it's like, okay, if I can find ways to make this fun, it makes me want to do it again.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not about fixing things. Like you said, earrings are not going to fix something, but it's that little moment of not everything is so serious.
And those moments when you give yourself that space, besides being able to breathe a little bit more, that is where creativity comes from. And when you have the actual space to be creative, that's where ideas come from. So if you're wondering, if somebody is listening to this podcast and they're like, oh, I've been dealing with writer's block or creative block, and I'm an artist, but I haven't been able to paint anything and I just haven't really been inspired. Well, are you constantly going from ping, 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 multitask, multitask? Have you given yourself space to just be creative and let ideas come in? Because chances are, when you're anxious, your brain says, give me something to do. And when you're anxious is like, well, I don't want to be thinking about this, so give me something to do. But then when we do things with that as the purpose of just fill my time and I can't be in silence and I'm so anxious, I just have to do something, that's when we doom scroll. And when you're doom scrolling and you have all that, then you're just absorbing more and more and more, which is not helping to alleviate anything. And you're not giving your space those ideas where solutions and things will pop up, because when you do have those moments of peace and quiet and creativity, you go, oh, you know what? Here's a different way of thinking about this thing that's been going on my whole life. And those ideas do come out from there. Or I do change my way of thinking about this, or I haven't thought of this that way because I never gave myself the space to
Yeah.
think about it differently yet.
Yeah. Answers come in silence. Yeah. They just do. Whether you choose to believe it or not, they do. Okay, so final thoughts.
Ooh, final thoughts. Rapid fire from the hip. Buy my book.
Yes.
I mean,
April
no, but you can
17th, her
see
book
my
is coming out.
yes, April 17th. You can see my lovely name here, Sarah Marie Shoulak. I'm sure that'll be in the show notes for those just listening. And just that's my name on everything. That'll be my website, sarahmarieshoulak.com. That's my Instagram handle. You can follow me on Substack. Now that the book is written, I can actually dedicate more time to actually putting stuff out on Substack because I was busy writing the book. But what is going to be really cool on the Substack is it's going to have content that did not make it into the book because I wrote way too long of a book. And they're like, girl, this is like 4 books. This is an autobiography. We need to make this just about death. Can you make it just about death? And I'm like, heard. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's going to be teaser content. So some of it I might save for other projects or publications, but some of it I'm going to drop out on the Substack. So if you subscribe there, then you don't have to be on the platforms where you doom scroll and you can follow in that way.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation and I wish you all the best on your book. I know how frustrating and anxious and anxiety inducing that can be.
My roller coasters of emotions with this book, like I will wake up in the middle of the night being like, why did I do why did I
Yep.
do this? I put everything in writing with people's real names. I just wake up in cold sweats because here's the thing. I mean, some names were changed, but it's a story about my real life. Like I'm not going to change my mom's name or my dad's name, or there's a point where it is a real life. It's not like I took it based on current events and I made it a fictional book. Like it's a memoir. Like it's this is what happened to me and these were the people who were there. So I could worry all night and stay up and be stressed out and say, well, someone is going to read this and remember it differently than I did. And you know what? If they do, I hope they write their own book and that they make $1 million writing what it was from their point of view. All I can do is hope that my memories, as I remember them, and that the stories that I chose to share help people who read it feel less shame about the stuff that they've gone through. Because beyond the grief and those types of things, I feel like there's just this big boulder of shame that sits on us. And we look and we say, well, because I did these things, I'm a horrible person, or I can never be a good person, or I'm not worth this, or I don't deserve that. And I feel like shame is such an inhibitor, more than lack of confidence or more than anything else. Just sitting with that and not knowing how to get past it. I hope that people read the stories and they go, "Oh, that's really relatable." And actually, I've had very similar experiences. And actually, maybe I can be happy and whimsical too. And that I'm no therapist. I'm not trying to actually help individual issues, but knowing that somebody else is out there who's looked at the other side of some really big, heavy things and gone, you know what? I think I can. I think I can still consider myself a happy person and mean it authentically and not be the fake happy.
Yeah. Yeah. No toxic positivity allowed. Means you're bypassing something. Yes. Don't do it.
I see you doing.
Yeah. Don't do it. I swear. I find you.
I will. I will find you.
All right. Well, thank you so much again for being on here.
Absolutely.
And thank you, listeners, for hanging out with us on Fine, I'll Talk About It. If today's episode got you thinking, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want more real talk, more perspective shifts, and more finally someone said it moments, leave a quick review. It helps other people find the show. You can connect with me on Instagram at Inspired Action Wellness or my website, inspiredactionwellness.com, for more inspiration like this. And we will see you in the next episode.